Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. My friends, it's time to call it exactly what it is. So like I keep saying folks, it's all compounding. The Biden border crisis, Bidenflation, catastrophic Biden foreign policy decisions, and now the Biden recession. His presidency is shaping up to be truly historic. But once again, it's another situation of that didn't end well. Biden and these corrupt Democrat goons have been saying since he took office that this is the strongest economy in American history. He's a historic jobs president. The numbers across the board are just spectacular. But of course, none of these coping Democrats wanted to listen. The writing's been on the wall since the start, folks, and we are starting to see a crash. Who would have seen this coming? I'm no economics expert, but honestly, compared to the economic incompetence and the absolutely ridiculous things that we have seen from the Biden administration, I might as well be. And so let's approach this whole thing from common sense, with the overarching theme being big government is basically at the core of all of this. Leftists often make this argument that capitalism is corrupt, the system is rigged, but really what it is crony capitalism, and crony socialism is corrupt, and we are now seeing the result, folks. Government screwed you once again, and it's not exactly surprising. We predicted this back in 2020, so I guess here's another I told you so moment. We got some stuff to get into, but of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers, and with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so take a look. Stock market crashes in the worst day since the pandemic over fears of a recession. The stock market crashed in the worst day since the pandemic outbreak in 2020 over fears that the economy was heading into a recession after several companies reported weak earnings. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 1,100 points, or 3.5%, while the S&P 500 dropped 4% and the NASDAQ Composite fell by 4.6%. And take a look at all the charts here, folks. If we go on year to date, the S&P 500 is down 18.2% since the start of 2022. And that means we are getting extremely close to a bear market. A bear market is a term used by Wall Street when an index like the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or even an individual stock has fallen 20% or more from a recent high for a sustained period of time. The S&P 500 is at 18.2% and has been steadily dropping for a pretty long time at this point. Consistent downward decline. And the moment we're seeing markets like the S&P 500 break that 20% decline, well, all hell is going to break loose on Wall Street. But what's happening now is not surprising. And look, I gotta be fair here, folks. It's not just Joe Biden's fault. It's not just the Democrats' fault. Republicans play a role in this as well. They're constantly voting to send billions of dollars overseas, totally unaccounted for. During the last year of Donald Trump's administration, the government printed millions upon millions of stimulus checks, and it was only a matter of time that the chickens come home to roost. This is what happens when you have an out-of-control government that is too big to fail, and continues to print funny money, monopoly money, and infuse it into the economy. None of what is currently happening is surprising. The reason why the stock markets are tanking is specifically because of the retail sector right now.
All right, the market has severely penalized shares of Target and Walmart for their surprisingly ugly earnings misses this week. Combined, the two discount retailers have shed more than $65 billion in market cap in the past 2 days in reaction to their earnings and outlooks. That $65 billion market cap loss is about 11 times the market cap of Macy's, for now, until it reports its own earnings.
Walmart and Target shed $65 billion in market cap after their most recent earnings report. And that's not a surprise whatsoever. That should have happened a long time ago. Like I've been saying forever, folks, they're not called stimulus checks for nothing. They're meant to artificially stimulate the economy. We have been in a recession for a long time. There's just been a giant band-aid over it. Of course, government stimulus, which has been kicking the can down the road, almost like scaffolding for the economy if you think about it, a support system to pretend as if everything's okay, when in reality, all of the record profits that all of these major retailers were seeing, the retail sector, people kept saying, well, retail sales are up, retail is doing incredible, was being stimulated by these stimulus checks. And when the money runs out, you see the true state of the economy. And government fiscal insanity has made it even worse. This unaccounted for spending, which is not just the stimulus checks, but the stimulus checks plus the spending packages, plus Joe Biden's agenda on on top of it has not only kicked the can down the road, but it's created this inflation situation, which is making stuff even worse. What's better, to have an unmanipulated economy and to face the initial recession head on, and then to recover afterwards, or to do what we did, to shut down the economy, to then stimulate the economy, create inflation, continue to print more money, continue to stimulate the economy for 2 years, creating this massive bubble, this inflation bubble and this stock price bubble, this speculative bubble that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually the whole thing just shatters and the middle class gets decimated. We've made it worse for ourselves. Instead of taking on the 2020 COOF-related recession, or frankly the government-forced recession once again in 2020, we're getting hyperinflation and then an even worse severe market crash to follow. Government screwed you, folks. And they've been running away from this, pretending as if it doesn't exist. Oh, major economists aren't predicting this, and now it's all starting to shift. Goldman Sachs senior chairman shares stark prediction for the US economy. Very, very high risk of recession. And now big Wall Street firms and big banks are finally admitting that Joe Biden is a big portion of the blame here. Morgan Stanley analyst directly blames Biden's excessive fiscal stimulus for surge of inflation. And so it's finally time for the chickens to come home to roost. And it seems as though the Biden recession is here, folks. And lefties are trying to cope. Here's lefty grifter Robert Reich. Can we please stop using the stock market to assess the well-being of the economy? The gains are not being shared. Wealth inequality is at its highest level since World War II. The first response is absolutely perfect. I guess I'm the only Democrat with a 401k. And he constantly writes this over and over again. It's worth pointing out once again that the stock market is not the economy. You search Robert Reich stock market on Google and all you get is the same video that he keeps regurgitating over and over again. The stock market is not the economy. The stock market is not the economy. The stock market is not the economy. When the stock market is literally the economy. It's a reflection of the economy. For instance, Netflix just shed tens of billions of dollars in market cap because their earnings went down. Now Netflix has to lay off 150 employees amid a subscriber decline. The markets react to company financial statements and quarterly reports, meaning how companies are doing within the scope of the economy is then reflected in how much money is being invested into these companies. And if these companies are not doing well and the economy is not doing well, then people lose their jobs and people, of course, at the bottom of the economic scale start to suffer more than anyone else. And that's what's going on here. And in this case, and in many cases, the government is responsible. The fiscal insanity and the irresponsible, unaccounted for stimulus, and then totally irresponsible spending on top of that during a hyperinflation crisis is the problem. And it would have been way worse had it not been for, at this point, Democrat superhero Joe Manchin. And Democrats want to tell you that it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Again, no, it's not. At least not from my analysis. You know why it's a worldwide problem? Because the majority of the world economy revolves around the European Union and North America. The US economy is the economy. The European Union economy is the economy. Those two powers combined, if they just decided in 2020 to shut down the economy and start printing trillions upon trillions of dollars, and then leading to this massive inflation, well, it's going to have impacts across the globe. And now what we're seeing is nationwide protests in Iran as food prices increase. The Iranian government isn't spending trillions of dollars in their socialist utopia to subsidize the bottom of the economic scale in their country. The United States printing press and the shutting down of the supply chain is now affecting every other country on the planet. And we know that it's not Russian oil that's the cause of all of this inflation. It's once again government spending. For instance, as you guys know, I'm currently in Vietnam. Of course, you guys know Vietnam is not a rich country. It's a growing country and it's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But even though it's called the Socialist Republic of Vietnam by name, they don't have a massive government that's subsidizing people's lives. People have to work here. To be honest, it's mostly rugged capitalism. If we search Vietnam inflation rate, it's covered around 1.5% to 2.8% over the last 2 years. And again, probably most of the inflation that smaller, less wealthy countries that aren't printing trillions of dollars are experiencing comes from the American and European economy. And of course, it comes a little bit from oil price manipulation, OPEC, Russia, and the big oil cartel, of course. But largely it comes from printing money. It's the big government racket, folks. They printed trillions upon trillions of dollars. They handed it out to all of the banks. Those banks then loaned money to the most wealthy investors to buy up all of the real estate to absolutely decimate the housing market. They gave little stimulus crumbs to regular citizens, which were then used in big box retail stores. All of that money and all those record profits went to Walmart and Amazon and Target. So the wealthiest few, the asset class and major corporations, made trillions upon trillions of dollars together. Billionaires doubled their net worth, and regular Americans got shafted shafted, not by capitalism, but by big government. By crony socialism is probably the best way to call it. It's funny how all of these spending packages, the one guy who's asking for the biggest price tag and the one guy who's defending all of it is Bernie Sanders, the guy who continues to claim that he's for the little guy. But it's funny how all of this government spending continues to enrich the wealthiest, the asset class, and major corporations as you continue to get poorer. The system is rigged, folks, and it's not the capitalist system. It's the corruption of the capitalist system. This is not a free market. This is a manipulated market. This is big government putting their hands in and manipulating this system. And the guy who gets the short end of the stick is the little guy. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about because you feel it. I've done pretty well for myself over the last couple of years, as well as many of my friends around me. My brother started a business. He's doing absolutely amazing. My best friend started a business. He's doing amazing. We're all doing great. But everyone around me is feeling the exact same thing. We're feeling squeezed. We're feeling like real estate is too expensive. We feel like we should be a lot better off considering how well we've done for ourselves. And I could only imagine that regular folk, everyone is feeling that exact same thing. And let me tell you folks, it's no coincidence. It's by design. And anybody who tells you that it was unpredicted, no one could have predicted this, as Jen Psaki said it recently, is a straight up liar because we've been saying it from the start. The moment they shut down the economy and started printing trillions of dollars, anybody with half a brain cell said, this is not sustainable and it's going to cause some serious problems down the line. There is going to be untold suffering, depression, people taking their own lives, substance abuse, losing everything, losing your retirement savings, your business, companies going bankrupt. We haven't seen the start of it. Big governments convinced you that you were doing the right thing, when in reality, you were enabling them to create a scenario that is going to cause untold amounts of suffering, not just in America, not just in Europe, but across the globe, mark my words. And we will dub that the Biden recession, because at the end of 2020, things weren't looking great, I'll admit, but what this administration has done has been reckless, irresponsible, and they have made things at least 2 to 3 times worse. It's the Biden recession, period. But of course, let me know what you guys are thinking. Leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.